Oh, wonderful. There goes YouTube. Okay, this is the third live stream in this project to build this test box thing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can go back and watch those. As I've said in the other videos, streams, I'm going to make an edited version of all this. This is just kind of like me making the video. That's why it's on my Scott.extras channel and not on my main channel, Scott. So yeah, eventually check that out. Yeah, it could be like a month or more. I don't know. I'm not very timely with the editing and the projects, but anyway, I'm hoping to. Fuck me, I'm still pointing at the wrong thing. Gotta get my shit together here. I'm hoping to finish wiring up the front panel for the line voltage box, and I'll briefly show you the low voltage box that has yet to be made, which will be probably the subject for tomorrow or the next night's live stream, which no one watches. Yeah, so shit, it's a disaster of crap over here. This is unnecessary for this. Yeehaw. I'm recording this, right? It sucked, because the first live stream I did with this project, I actually forgot to record on my proper recorder, like high quality, high resolution recorder, which is what I would use for the edited version of the video. So I ended up only streaming it and had to download this shit quality stream that you're now watching, which isn't really shit quality. I mean, it's still 1080p, and it still looks halfway decent, I hope. But it's just not as good as like a recorder here in my basement would do. But no matter. Press on. So let's see where I last was. I soldered all these tails onto these LEDs, which are actually meant to operate at line voltage. They must have a resistor inside of this body here. And just to review for those of you who didn't see, in this case, blue indicates live and yellow indicates neutral, which is just to not get the black confused with the black from a DC supply, which this is going to be next to all the time. So in case you're wondering why I'm using these two colors, that's the reason, even though it's non-standard. And I'm trying to make this as modular as possible. Like, some of these connections I'm going to have to solder, but the ones that I don't, the ones that have screw terminals, obviously I use the screw terminals. The ones that just have, oh my god, push spade terminals, I'll just put the appropriate connector on for those. And then to connect everything together, like to make a bus for everything, I'm going to use Wago terminals, Wago connectors. They're not really terminals at all, because they split things, which is kind of the opposite of what a terminal does. Oh, I guess like they still call, well, no. I'm going to say you can go to a, never mind. I was going to make an analogy to trains, but it was a poor quality analogy, so I'm just not going to bother. Alright, so what we have here is, this is going to be the main neutral bus that everything's going to connect to. This is the line in for the live side of things. It's going directly to an LED to indicate the power is coming into the box. It goes to a circuit breaker, then it goes to a switch. It's a lighted switch, that's why it has a neutral. And this is the other terminal for the switch, which is the live out, which then will have to go to its own Wago terminal bus, because that's going to get split to a few different things. It's going to get split to both these indicators, as well as this binding post, or rather this banana plug socket, and oh boy, this switch and this switch. So it, yeah, it goes all over the place. For the most part, I'm using 12 gauge wire for the inside of this, except for the LEDs, which are really obviously very low current. And it's mostly just because the 12 gauge wire was really too thick to even fit onto the posts on these. So, anywho, where am I going now? So, oh, actually, you know what? I'm going to use the really light gauge wire also for these, because these also have very tiny screw terminals. Or should I use the 12 gauge and really try to shove it in there? You know what? I'll use the 12 gauge and just see what I can do with that. It's going to be a better idea anyway. And the entire project has a 3 amp circuit breaker. It's actually going to have 2 3 amp circuit breakers on it, so we're not going to... Did I say this was 12 gauge wire? It's 14 gauge wire. I don't know. I don't remember what I said. That's something for editing to take care of, you know? Live streaming, though, has no such luxury of making mistakes. I mean, it does when no one's watching your live stream. So, you know, I guess that's a positive. Alright, let's see if this fits under those screw terminals. I'm gonna guess it will not. There's no bit on this driver. How the fuck is that possible? No, I put the bit back in the case, but not the driver. Or not the, handle. Whatever the fuck. What do you call this without a bit in it? I mean, is it still a screwdriver if I can't drive screws? I guess I could drive screws with hex heads on them, like of a very specific size. So I guess it would still be a screwdriver. It's a bit, of an unnecessary question. These screw terminals are tiny. They're not like... These are meant for use with line voltage, 120 volt supplies. But it's like... Damn, I don't know what size of cable it's really supposed to connect to, what size of conductor. Because like about half the strands actually got under that terminal. It's not for me screwing it up, that's just because the screw terminal is so tiny. I mean, it's in there pretty good though, so I think that's fine. It's not like it's going to shorten anything because it's contained inside that plastic case. So you know what, I'm okay with that. And I need another large ass Wago block, Wago connector. You know what? Ugh, fuck. Should I go with the... I'm also thinking about using the lighter gauge wire because it's going to be less of a mass inside this box and just bend more easily. You know what? Let me use the thinner gauge wire for this. I have changed my mind. I don't have the spools here. The spools are actually hung up on a thing and not easily removable, so I'm going to go cut some wire off of those. And when I say some wire, this wire is of an indeterminate gauge. Maybe it says on the spool, in case anyone's wondering, because I'm kind of wondering. I think it's 18 gauge. Yeah, it's 18 gauge. And just sort of like cheap-ass stranded wire. Nothing special about it whatsoever. Other than it's fairly cheap. But so far it's been, you know, seems to be decent quality. It's copper-clad aluminum. The 14 gauge wire that I'm using is actually pure copper. Well, I mean, I don't know what pure copper. I might have cheated and put a little something in there, but it's definitely not aluminum. So yeah, much thinner wire. I mean, it's not much thinner, but yeah. Fucker. I was tired all day, like absolutely shot. And I'm working at home for virus times. Just cut this in half. And yes, I'm switching to doing the yellow wire instead of the blue for no real reason. Doesn't really matter which one I do first. I mean, it's AC, so it doesn't matter which one of these goes where. It's all just kind of as you please. Anyway, so I'm working from home because it's virus times in New York. And many other places, unfortunately. And you'd think I'd get more sleep, but I really don't. And I was going to say it's not for lack of trying, it's literally for lack of trying. I'm always up doing some kind of project or some shit on the computer. Or gaming. I'm not like a big gamer, but, you know, sometimes I do. And anyway, yeah, in case you were wondering, it's now 1 a.m. here in New York, and I'm just starting on this live stream. I complain about... Well, I'm not really complaining, mind you. I don't know, maybe it is complaining. I'm not really sure. It sounds stupid that I'm not sure if it's complaining, but it's more like an observation, because, like, it's my own fault that I'm tired. I usually am tired, because I never get enough sleep. It's just you figure during virus times I should. And it's just my own, I strip that too short. It's just my own stubbornness that's making me not go to bed in a timely fashion. Now, I don't know if you're supposed to double up conductors in a Wago connector. I'm going to wager not. I said this in the previous streams, but just to make it clear, like, I wouldn't do this if this was building wiring, if it was in my wall or ceiling or whatever. I wouldn't even use, these are knockoff Wago connectors, not even the real thing. Wouldn't use these either in a permanent installation, nor would I use such a thin gauge wire, nor would I use such cheap wire. But this box is always going to be observed by me. I'm going to be staring right at it whenever it's on. So if it starts melting down, I can disconnect the power, and it even has a remote power disconnect switch. So, you know, it's, and this isn't like super unsafe. I mean, the conductors are in there, they're all in there good. Like, I'm not trying to make anything dangerous, it's just, I can see someone, if they got like overly serious about this, be like, oh no, that's a fire hazard, you're doing that all wrong. And it's like, I mean, it's not like, you know, also if I was going to give it to someone else to use, and I didn't know how they'd use it or if they'd treat it with the proper amount of respect, I might, you know, build it to a higher standard, but this is just for fun and just for me, so I only give that disclaimer because I feel like a lot of people, I've yet to experience that myself, but a lot of people like tend to, that's good in there good and tight, get all up in arms, and maybe legs too, over this kind of shit. And it's like, I know what's proper and what's not, for the most part. I mean, I'm not a professional electrician, I'd never pretend to be one. But I'm also fairly confident in what I'm doing here. Especially to the point, like I said, that only I'm going to be using this. Like, I'm not going to let a child get their hands on it. Although I guess people say the same thing about guns, and then like a child gets their hands on a gun, and it's still the gun owner's responsibility because the child snuck in and stole the gun. I'm not making any kind of like pro or con gun argument here. My point is that, like, I guess if a child stole this and plugged it in and started a fire, it would be my fault. I'm willing to accept that. I don't have children, so, you know, if a child does sneak into my house and starts fucking with my electronics, probably have bigger problems anyway. Where do I want to measure the current using this toroidal coil? I guess right before the first binding post, or at the last, before the first binding post. Yeah, the point of these, I keep calling them binding posts, they're really just banana sockets, I don't know. Binding posts they would stick up and have, like, screw in and out, maybe also accept banana plugs. If I call them binding posts, these are what I mean, then I know they're not that, but point is, I want to be able to measure the current going to the output side of this. Is going to be a plug, a socket rather, on this side. And the idea behind this is that I can insert a multimeter between these two posts, these two sockets, and the current will flow through the meter if this switch is in the off position. If it's on, it'll just connect those two together and just sort of bypass them, so current can flow right through. And this way I could also tap either the live or neutral or both. The point is that I don't want this toroidal coil to interfere with any of my readings, so I think I'm better off putting it on the supply side before it hits this banana post. So I think, yeah, I'll do it right after the switch, actually. So this is sort of like the main power connection for everything. But I don't necessarily want to get the load that those are putting on us, even though it's going to be minuscule. It's probably not even going to register. Sorry I'm vacillating. I like kind of planned this out insofar as I made a diagram of what it was going to look like. I mean, I made the front cover of it. That's really as far as I got as planning goes, so sorry if you kind of have to muddle through this with me. Yeah, so I want to actually just get the current going on that banana socket before the multimeter, but after all this shit. Yeah, I think that's the way to go. And one thing I do need to do is the banana sockets, the way they electrically connect is, oh my god, can't get this off the desk. They use these little assemblies, these little dealies that go there, and then a nut clamps that down thusly, and so you would solder onto that. I mean, I guess I could wrap a wire around that and compress it with a nut if I had a couple of washers. I think I'd rather use the soldering route on this. The only problem is, and I don't really know what these banana posts are rated. Well, again, this whole thing is only going to see 3 amps max, provided the, oh wow, I can't get that nut out, provided the circuit breakers work. This is a thin piece of metal. It's not great. It's not great. I'm really thinking about wrapping a wire around it because this hole is so small, there's no way I'm going to get all the strands of a 12 gauge wire through there. You know what? No, let me solder it. Let me solder it just because I think that'll give a better mechanical connection overall than just wrapping the wire around the post and clamping it down. But that's a perfectly sound connection methodology that's used pretty much everywhere. Yeah, it's decided. I'm going to go with wrap the wire around and put a washer. I just need washers. That is the tricky part. I'll be right back. Let me get a binding post, banana plug, banana socket, so I can get the right size washer. The problem is these are going to be steel washers and zinc coated. Not stainless. I don't think I have extra stainlesses. Do I have any washers with like that small an inner diameter? Ah, yes. Yeah, but as long as the wire is wrapped tightly around the post, that should be fine. In theory, I need a washer for above and below the wire. Although I could use those little clips that they supply as a washer, effectively. Alright, let me just bring all these over there where I have better light. I have a whole thing on the wall of these bins. And there's probably like, I don't know, 40 bins. Yet I have 3 different sizes of washer in one bin because the rest of them are so well used with nuts and bolts and screws and other shit. These actually these look like stainless washers. These aren't zinc coated. Steel has a decent amount of resistance. 2, 4, 6. That's so you know what? I'll use these. These are probably aluminum. These little tabs that it came with. Those will act as washers. So yeah, these will be more of a mechanical fastener than something really meant to provide electrical continuity. I mean, they'll be fine because, as we all know, electricity takes the path of least resistance, and the least resistance will go through this. I'm assuming aluminum. It might be steel, actually. Actually, I'm pretty sure that's steel because it's too springy. It's too hard for that thickness, or thinness, rather. Oy. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place here. Like I said, I'm tired. Okay, that would require yellow, because that is a yellow banana dealie. Let's call them banana dealies. Not like sizing these with any kind of real logic, just sort of going by feel, which is, you know, how long do I want this? Not too long. That's fine. And the other end's going into a Wago terminal. Wago connector. Jesus. My terminology's all over the place. My terminology when it comes to terminals. That's one of the dumbest puns I've ever made in my life. That should be way longer. This, yeah, let me use the longer side for that then. I feel like this wire is so fat though. Like it's not gonna get clamped neatly under there, is it? Another critical lack of planning on my part is I don't have anything to drive that nut with. Oh, or do I? That could be a lie. Is it going to fit